The rain hammered against the windows of the Moretti mansion like bullets, relentless and cold. Vincent Moretti stood in his study on the third floor, a glass of bourbon in his hand, watching the storm consume the New York skyline. At 42, he had built an empire that stretched from the docks of Brooklyn to the penthouses of Manhattan. Power, respect, fear, he commanded them all. But on nights like this, when the rain washed the city clean, he felt nothing but emptiness. He took a sip of his drink, savoring the burn. His phone buzzed on the mahogany desk, another problem that needed solving, another rival making noise. Vincent ignored it. He had people for that. Tonight, he wanted silence. But silence never lasted long in his world. A movement in the garden below caught his eye. Through the rain-streaked glass, he saw a figure hunched beneath the bare oak tree near the service entrance. At first, he thought it was a stray dog, or maybe one of his guards taking an unauthorized break. But as lightning cracked across the sky, illuminating the yard in stark white light, he saw her clearly. Elena. His maid was sitting on the wet ground, her thin jacket soaked through, eating something from a plastic container. She moved slowly, methodically, as if the rain didn't exist, as if she had nowhere else to go. Vincent's jaw tightened. What the hell was she doing out there? He set down his glass and left the study, his Italian leather shoes clicking against the marble floors. The house was quiet. His wife had left him 3 years ago, his children were grown and distant, and the staff knew to make themselves invisible. Only Elena remained, the woman who cleaned his floors and did his laundry without ever meeting his eyes. He descended the grand staircase and made his way through the kitchen to the back door. The rain greeted him like a slap, cold and unforgiving. But Vincent didn't care. He strode across the garden, his expensive suit getting ruined with every step. "What are you doing?" His voice cut through the storm. Elena jumped, nearly dropping her container. She scrambled to her feet, her dark eyes wide with fear. Water dripped from her hair, plastering it to her face. She was younger than he'd realized, maybe 30, with sharp cheekbones and hands rough from work. "Mr. Moretti, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to—" "Answer the question." His tone was ice. She clutched the container to her chest. "I was just eating. My break. I didn't want to bother anyone inside." Vincent looked at what she was holding. It wasn't food from his kitchen. It was rice and beans, plain and cold. In a container that had been reused so many times, the plastic was cracked. "You work in a house with a kitchen full of food, and you're out here eating that?" He gestured at the container. "In the rain?" Elena's gaze dropped to the ground. I can't afford to eat your food, sir. That's for you and your guests." "I don't have guests." "Still, it wouldn't be right." Vincent stared at her, trying to understand. His staff ate well. He made sure of it. He paid them decent wages, gave them benefits. Why would she be starving? "How long have you been working for me?" he asked. 6 months, sir." 6 months, and he'd barely noticed her. She was just another shadow in his house, another person he paid to exist on the periphery of his life. "Get inside," he said. "You're soaked." "I still have work to finish." "Inside, now." Elena hesitated, then followed him back to the house. They entered through the kitchen, and Vincent grabbed a towel from the drawer, tossing it to her. She caught it but didn't use it, as if she didn't deserve even that small comfort. "Dry off," he ordered. She did, slowly, her movements careful and quiet. Vincent watched her, really looked at her for the first time. Her clothes were old and worn, her shoes held together with tape. There were dark circles under her eyes, and her wrists were so thin he could see the bones. "Where do you live?" he asked. Eleanor's hands tightened on the towel. "Brooklyn, sir, near Sunset Park." "That's an hour away. How do you get here?" "The subway, and I walk the last mile." Vincent did the math in his head. She worked 12-hour days, 6 days a week. That meant she spent at least 3 hours commuting, and she was eating scraps in the rain. Why? The question came out harsher than he intended. Elena looked confused. Why what, sir? Why are you working yourself to death for pennies? You could get a job anywhere. For the first time, she met his eyes. There was no defiance there, no anger, just exhaustion. I send most of my money home, Mr. Moretti, to my family in El Salvador. My mother is sick, and my younger brother is in school. This job, it's the best I could find. You pay on time, you don't ask questions, and I'm grateful for it. Vincent felt something shift in his chest, something he hadn't felt in years. It might have been shame. It might have been recognition. He'd built his empire on the backs of people like Elena, people who worked in silence, who sacrificed everything for the people they loved. "Go home," he said quietly. "It's late." "But the floors." "I said go home." Elena nodded, gathered her things, and disappeared into the rain. Vincent stood alone in the kitchen, staring at the plastic container she'd left behind on the counter. For the first time in a long time, Vincent Moretti felt something break inside him, and he didn't know if he wanted to fix it or let it shatter completely. Vincent didn't sleep that night. He sat in his study until dawn, the rain finally giving way to a grey morning. The image of Elena sitting in the mud, eating cold rice with the dignity of a queen, haunted him. He'd seen poverty before, hell, he'd grown up in it. But somewhere along the way, he'd forgotten what it looked like, or maybe he'd just stopped caring. By the time the sun rose, he'd made a decision. When Elena arrived at 8 o'clock sharp, soaked again from the morning drizzle, Vincent was waiting in the kitchen. She froze when she saw him, her eyes darting to the clock as if checking whether she was late. "You're not in trouble," he said before she could apologize. She relaxed slightly, but didn't come closer. Smart woman. She knew who he was, what he was capable of. Vincent poured 2 cups of coffee and slid one across the counter toward her. "Sit. Mr. Moretti, I really should—" "Sit." Elena sat, perching on the edge of the stool like a bird ready to fly. She didn't touch the coffee. Vincent took a sip of his, watching her over the rim of the cup. "How much do you send home every month?" Her eyes widened. That's personal, sir." "Everything in my house is my business. Answer the question." She swallowed hard. "About $2,000. "And how much do I pay you?" $2,500 a month." Vincent set down his cup. $500. She was living on $500 a month in New York City. No wonder she was eating scraps. "What's your mother sick with?" he asked. Eleanor's hands trembled slightly. "Diabetes. She needs medication, insulin. It's expensive there." "And your brother?" 16. "He's smart, Mr. Moretti, top of his class. If he can finish school, he can go to university, get a real job. He could lift the whole family up." Vincent nodded slowly. He understood family loyalty. It was the only code he still believed in, even if his own family had fallen apart. "I'm going to ask you something, and I want you to be honest with me," he said. "When was the last time you ate a real meal?" Elena's gaze dropped to the coffee. "I eat, sir." "That's not what I asked." Silence stretched between them. Outside, a car horn blared, and someone shouted in Italian. The city was waking up, indifferent to their conversation. "3 days ago," Elena finally whispered, "I had a sandwich from the bodega near the subway." 3 days. Vincent felt that crack in his chest widen. "From now on, you eat here," he said. "Breakfast, lunch, and you take dinner home with you. I don't care what it costs. You work in this house. You eat from this kitchen." Elena's head snapped up. "Mr. Moretti, I can't." "You can and you will. That's an order. But I'm not a charity case, if that's what you're thinking." His voice hardened. "I need you functional. You can't clean if you're passing out from hunger. This is business." It wasn't business, and they both knew it. But the lie made it easier for her to accept. Elena's eyes filled with tears, but she blinked them back quickly. "Thank you, sir." Vincent stood, uncomfortable with her gratitude. "There's leftover pasta in the fridge. Heat it up and eat before you start working. And Elena?" "Yes, sir?" "Stop calling me sir. Mr. Moretti is fine." She nodded, and for the first time since he'd hired her, she smiled. It was small and tentative, but it was real. Vincent left the kitchen before he could do something stupid like smile back. He had a reputation to maintain, after all, but as he climbed the stairs to his study, he realized something had changed. The house didn't feel quite so empty anymore. 2 weeks passed, and Vincent found himself structuring his days around Elena's presence. He made sure the kitchen was stocked with foods she might like. Fresh vegetables, chicken, rice prepared the way she did it with cilantro and lime. He told himself it was practical. A well-fed employee was a productive employee. But late at night, when he caught himself wondering if she'd gotten home safely, he knew he was lying. Elena had changed too. She no longer flinched when he entered a room. She ate the meals he left for her without protest. Sometimes, when she thought he wasn't looking, she'd close her eyes and savor the food like it was a prayer. Those moments made Vincent's chest ache in ways he didn't understand. On a Tuesday morning, Vincent was in the kitchen reading the newspaper when Elena arrived. She looked different, paler than usual, with a tightness around her mouth that spoke of pain. "Good morning, Mr. Moretti," she said quietly. He glanced up. "You look terrible." She managed a weak smile. "Thank you, sir." That wasn't a compliment. "What's wrong?" "Nothing, I'm fine." Vincent folded his newspaper and stood. "Elena!" She sighed, defeated. "It's just a headache. It'll pass." "When did it start?" "Last night." "Have you eaten today?" She shook her head. Vincent walked to the cabinet and pulled out a bottle of painkillers, then poured her a glass of water. "Take these, then eat something. You're not working until you do." Elena accepted the pills gratefully. "Thank you." He watched as she prepared herself a simple breakfast, scrambled eggs and toast. She ate slowly, mechanically, like someone who'd forgotten how to enjoy food. It reminded him of his mother, back when they'd lived in the cramped apartment in Little Italy. She'd worked 3 jobs to keep him and his sisters fed, and she'd eaten the same way. Fuel, not pleasure. "Tell me about your family," Vincent said suddenly. Elena looked up, surprised. "My family? Your mother, your brother, what are their names?" She hesitated, then said, "My mother is Maria. My brother is Carlos." "And your father?" Her expression darkened. "He left when I was 12. We haven't heard from him since." Vincent nodded. He understood abandonment. His own father had been murdered when Vincent was 16, leaving him to navigate the dangerous world of organized crime, alone. "How old were you when you came to America?" he asked. 22. 8 years ago." "Alone?" "Yes. I had a cousin here who said he could help me find work, but when I arrived he was gone. Disappeared." She took a sip of water. "I spent the first year cleaning offices at night, sleeping in subway stations. It was difficult." Vincent felt anger rise in his chest, not at her, but at the world that had forced her into such circumstances. "And you've been sending money home this whole time? Every month, even when I had nothing for myself?" "That's foolish." Elena's eyes flashed with defiance. "That's family." And there it was. The fire he'd suspected lived beneath her quiet exterior. Vincent found himself smiling despite himself. "You're right," he said. "It is." They sat in silence for a moment, the morning light streaming through the windows. Outside, the city hummed with its usual chaos, sirens, car horns, voices raised in argument or laughter. But inside the kitchen, there was peace. "Can I ask you something, Mr. Moretti?" Elena said softly. "Go ahead. Why are you being so kind to me?" Vincent considered the question. He could give her the easy answer, that it was practical, that he needed her functional. But sitting across from her now, watching the way she held her coffee cup like it was something precious, he couldn't lie. "I don't know," he admitted. "Maybe because you remind me of someone." "Who?" "My mother. She worked herself to death for us, literally, heart attack at 53. He paused. "I was too young and too stupid to help her. By the time I had money and power, she was gone." Elena's eyes softened with understanding. "I'm sorry." "Don't be. Just don't kill yourself for people who should be taking care of you instead. They would if they could. My mother, Carlos, they'd give anything to help me, but there are no opportunities there. I'm the lucky one." Lucky. Vincent looked at her worn clothes, her tired eyes, her hands scarred from years of harsh cleaning chemicals. If this was luck, the world was more broken than he'd thought. "How much does your mother need for her medication each month?" he asked. Elena frowned. "Why?" "Just answer the question." "About $300, but Mr. Moretti and Carlos's school. Maybe 200, but I can't accept." Vincent held up a hand. "I'm not offering you charity. I'm offering you a deal." She looked at him warily. "What kind of deal?" "You live here. There's a room on the 3rd floor that's empty. You move in, you save on rent and commute time. In exchange, you work an extra hour each day. I'll pay for your mother's medication and your brother's schooling directly." Elena's mouth fell open. I can't." "You can. It's business. I need someone here full-time anyway. The house is too big for part-time staff." It was a lie. He didn't need her there full-time. But he needed to know she was safe, fed, not sleeping in some dangerous neighborhood in Brooklyn. "Why would you do this?" she whispered. Vincent stood and carried his coffee cup to the sink. "Because I can, and because you deserve better than eating in the rain." He left the kitchen before she could argue, before he could see the tears that were undoubtedly forming in her eyes. Because if he stayed, he might do something really stupid, like admit that somewhere in the past 2 weeks, Elena Rodriguez had stopped being just his maid, and he had no idea what to do about it. Elena moved into the mansion 3 days later. She arrived with a single battered suitcase and a cardboard box containing everything she owned in the world. Vincent watched from his study window as she stood in the driveway, staring up at the house like it might disappear if she blinked. He'd assigned her the guest room on the 3rd floor, the one with the view of the garden and its own bathroom. It was 10 times larger than whatever place she'd been renting in Brooklyn. When she saw it, she simply stood in the doorway, speechless. "It's too much," she'd finally said. "It's a room. You'll clean it yourself, so I don't see the problem." Now, a week into the new arrangement, Vincent was discovering the complications he hadn't anticipated, like the fact that he could hear her moving around upstairs late at night, or that her presence made the house feel alive in a way it hadn't in years, or that he found himself looking forward to their morning conversations over coffee with an intensity that bordered on pathetic. He was sitting in the kitchen one evening when Elena came downstairs, her hair wet from a shower. She wore simple clothes, jeans and a sweater, but she looked more relaxed than he'd ever seen her. "I just spoke to my mother," she said, her face glowing. "The medication you sent arrived. She said to thank you." Vincent shrugged. "It's part of our arrangement. It's more than that, and you know it." He didn't respond. What could he say? That yes, it was more than that? that he'd started making international calls to ensure her family had everything they needed, that he'd wired money for repairs to their house without telling her. Elena sat down across from him. "Mr. Moretti, I need to understand what's happening here." "Nothing's happening. You work. I pay you. Simple." "It's not simple, and we both know it." Her voice was gentle but firm. "You're one of the most powerful men in New York. You don't need a live-in maid. You don't need to pay for my family's expenses. So why are you doing this?" Vincent met her eyes. "Maybe I'm trying to be a better person. By helping me. By helping someone who deserves it for once." The words hung between them, heavy with meaning. Eleanor reached across the table and placed her hand over his. It was the first time she'd voluntarily touched him, and Vincent felt the contact like electricity. "Thank you," she said simply. He should have pulled away, should have reminded her of the boundaries between them. But instead, he turned his hand over and laced his fingers through hers. "You're welcome." They sat like that for a long moment, hands clasped, two people from different worlds finding unexpected connection. Then Vincent's phone rang, shattering the moment. He pulled away to answer it, and the warmth disappeared. "Moretti," he said curtly. "Boss, we got a problem." It was Marco, one of his lieutenants. "The Castellano crew hit one of our warehouses. 3 men dead." Vincent's expression hardened. "I'll be there in 20 minutes. He ended the call and stood. Elena was watching him with concern. "You have to go," she said. "Business. Dangerous business." He grabbed his jacket from the back of the chair. "It's what I do. Will you—" She hesitated. "Will you be safe?" Vincent looked at her, at the genuine worry in her eyes, and felt something shift in his chest. When was the last time anyone had cared whether he came home? "I'll be fine," he said. "Don't wait up." But as he drove through the dark streets toward the warehouse district, Vincent realized that for the first time in years, he had a reason to be careful. Someone was waiting for him to come home, and that changed everything. The war with the Castellano family escalated quickly. Over the next 2 weeks, Vincent barely slept, moving between meetings, negotiations, and displays of force that kept his enemies at bay. The city felt like a powder keg, ready to explode at any moment. Every corner, every shadow could hide a threat. His men were on high alert, and the tension was suffocating. Vincent came home at odd hours, sometimes bleeding, always exhausted. The mansion, which had once been a cold monument to his success, had transformed into something else entirely. It had become a sanctuary, and Elena was the reason why. She never asked questions about his business, never judged the blood on his shirts or the bruises on his knuckles. She simply cleaned his wounds, made him food, and sat with him in the quiet hours of the morning when the weight of his choices kept him awake. One particularly brutal night, Vincent stumbled through the door at 3 a.m. His lip was split, his knuckles raw, and there was a gash above his eyebrow that wouldn't stop bleeding. He'd expected the house to be dark, everyone asleep. But Elena was waiting in the kitchen, a first aid kit already open on the counter. "You don't have to do this," he told her as she guided him to a chair. Her hands were gentle but firm as she examined his injuries. "I know," she said, dampening a cloth with warm water, "but I want to." "Why?" The question came out rougher than he intended, edged with the frustration and exhaustion of the night. Elena didn't answer right away. She cleaned the blood from his face with careful precision, her brow furrowed in concentration. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "Because you did something for me that no one else ever has. You saw me, really saw me, not as a worker or an immigrant or a problem to be solved. You saw me as a person who mattered." Vincent felt his throat tighten. In his world, people were assets or threats, pawns in an endless game of power. But Eleanor, she was different. She'd slipped past his defenses without even trying. "Eleanor." She placed her hand on his chest, right over his heart. He could feel the warmth of her palm through his blood-stained shirt. "I know who you are, Mr. Moretti. I know what you do. And I'm not naive enough to think you're a good man by most standards." Her honesty should have stung, but it didn't. It was refreshing, actually. No one spoke to him like that anymore. "But you're good to me," she continued, "and that means something. That means everything." He covered her hand with his own, holding it against his chest. "You should stay away from me. I'm dangerous. The people I deal with, they don't have limits. If they knew you mattered to me." The words hung in the air, heavy with implication. In his world, caring about someone was a liability. It gave your enemies ammunition. Elena's eyes met his, unflinching. "I've been in danger my whole life, Mr. Moretti. Crossing the desert to get here, sleeping in subway stations, working 3 jobs just to send money home. At least with you, I choose the danger. At least with you, it means something." Vincent pulled her closer, eliminating the space between them. He rested his forehead against hers, breathing in the scent of her shampoo, something simple and clean that reminded him of better times, simpler times. "I can't promise you a normal life," he said, his voice rough with emotion he rarely allowed himself to feel. "I don't want normal," Elena replied. "I want real. I want something that matters." He kissed her then, breaking every rule he'd set for himself. It was gentle at first, tentative, 2 damaged people seeking comfort in each other. But then Elena wrapped her arms around his neck, and the kiss deepened into something more. Need, desire, desperation. All the things Vincent had denied himself for years. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Vincent let out a sound that was half laugh, half disbelief. "This is crazy." "Probably," Elena agreed, a small smile playing at her lips. "But I stopped caring about crazy the day I started eating in the rain, and you noticed." Vincent laughed, a real laugh that came from somewhere deep inside, a place he thought had died years ago. "You're going to ruin me, aren't you?" "Maybe," Elena said, brushing his hair back from his forehead with a tenderness that made his chest ache. "Or maybe I'll save you. I'm beyond saving." Eleanor's smile turned sad. "Everyone is beyond saving until someone decides they're worth the effort. My mother used to tell me that. She said everyone deserves a chance at redemption no matter how far they've fallen. Your mother sounds like a wise woman. She is. You'd like her." Over the following days, they fell into a new rhythm. By day, Elena maintained the house, though Vincent had started to care less about the cleaning and more about simply having her nearby. By night, she waited for Vincent to come home, patched his wounds, and reminded him that he was more than just the violence that defined his world. They talked during those quiet hours about her childhood in El Salvador, about his rise through the ranks of organized crime, about dreams they'd both given up on. Vincent found himself sharing things he'd never told anyone, not even his ex-wife. Elena listened without judgment, offering insights that surprised him with their depth. But peace never lasted long in Vincent Moretti's life. On a cold November evening, 3 weeks after that first kiss, Vincent arrived home to find Elena in the kitchen, crying over her phone. The sound of her sobs hit him like a physical blow. He was at her side immediately, his earlier meeting with the Castellano family's intermediary forgotten. "What's wrong?" He knelt beside her chair, taking her trembling hands in his. "It's Carlos," she sobbed, her voice breaking. "He's missing." "He didn't come home from school 3 days ago." Vincent's blood ran cold. The protective instinct that had been growing in him roared to life. 3 days? Why didn't you tell me sooner?" "I just found out. My mother—" Elena's voice cracked. She was too scared to call. She thought he just ran away, that maybe he was upset about something. "But it's been 3 days, Vincent." 3 days and no one has seen him. Do they have any leads? Did anyone see anything? Elena shook her head violently. The police won't do anything. They said he probably joined a gang. They said boys like him. She couldn't finish the sentence, overcome by fresh tears. Vincent felt rage building in his chest, not at Elena, but at a system that dismissed a missing child because of where he came from. He pulled out his own phone, his mind already working through the logistics. "Give me your mother's number," he said, his voice calm despite the storm brewing inside him. "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to find him." Within 20 minutes, Vincent had made 6 phone calls. He contacted his associates in El Salvador, men who owed him favors, men who had resources the local police didn't. He arranged for 3 of his best investigators to fly to San Salvador on a private plane that night. He wired money for rewards, for bribes, for whatever it would take.